Friends, this is Frederick Henry, and thank you for downloading the Frederick Henry Show, a podcast about everything Donald Trump. And I was wondering today, as I'm reading the increased unemployment numbers, what industries are represented by these numbers. They're huge numbers, 22 million Americans out of work, which is very concerning and very worrisome to me, and I'm sure to you. And if you're one of those unemployed, it's very worrisome. But what industries are represented? Now, I think I have an idea that one of the industries might be travel. I mean, things related to gas stations, things related to car repair, and anything to do with the car. I should think that it has a lot to do with the airline industry, which is a very big industry. Traveling by plane has virtually come to a standstill, as far as I can tell. And then the tourism industry, the whole East Coast and West Coast, and all of the South, this is the time for traveling, for vacations, for visiting. We're entering the summer months, but the kids are already out of school, although they do have some residual, online piece. But this all has to boom up again because people have to get out and get together. Now, the thing that comes to my mind is that we need to know, I'm sure the president knows and others, but maybe the population needs to know what industries are impacted and how this might be able to be solved. I think, for instance, like opening the beaches. Several states, many states along the East Coast and on our southern borders have extensive beaches on the Gulf. Florida has two, it's a peninsula, has water all around it on three sides. States like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, they have extensive coastlines, and their tourism industry needs to be open. Now, beaches, it seems to me, are automatically distancing situations. The beach is huge. Of course, we have a lot of people on beaches, but I've been on beaches, Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, Hilton Head Island, other places, and what I see there is, in the past, people gathered together in front of their resort, or they gathered together in front of their condo or something like that. And I think people are reasonable enough and intelligent enough today to know that that really isn't going to work. They're going to have to separate. They're going to have to stay apart, And that's easy to do on a beach. It really is. It might have to mean you walk a ways. I've been on many beaches where there's lots of people gathered in front of their condo or in front of their timeshare, and you walk 3 minutes down the beach and it's virtually empty. You could just plop yourself down there, it'd be no problem. I know that in the past, when I've gone to Hilton Head Island, they used to line up the chairs on the beach every 2 or 3 feet. Well, they're going to have to line up the chairs every 6 to 8 feet, but they can still line up the chairs. There's no problem with that. Beaches are an outdoor activity. There is not a lot of breathing on each other, and people will stand around and talk at a distance with each other. They will do that. They're naturally going to do that. Now, children, and we're getting more and more information that the coronavirus does not heavily impact children, as far as we can tell. They gather together. They're on top of each other. They run around. And we just have to stay with family, stay with family and encourage the kids to play with each other in family. But maybe they don't want to run around too much with other families at this time. But they can still go on vacation. They can still go to the beach. They can still use the facilities. Recently, I was thinking also that, the whole piece of the distancing is not going to work. We can't keep, as a rule, 6-foot distances in our society. We don't work that way as a society. We don't have 6-foot distances mandatorily everywhere we go. It just doesn't work for us. And so, yes, we can encourage people, we can make strong suggestions, we can give guidelines, but I don't think we should have arresting of people. I've seen this on the Twitter feeds where mothers and others in playgrounds with their children and their neighbors' children have, by mutual agreement, been playing in the playground, and the police have been called by some snitcher. Somebody snitches on them, whatever that means. Snitching in American society. Who ever heard of such a thing? Snitching. We don't snitch on each other. That's a Gestapo thing. That's a Nazi thing. That's a communist thing. Give me a break. We don't snitch on each other, call the police and say, our neighbor is breaking the law, come right out and get them. We always regarded the snitch as someone unworthy of our dignity and honor, and we should still feel that way. People should not be snitching, and the government should not be encouraging snitching on other people. and tattletaling on other people. This is America. This is not a spy state. We're not in the Stasi of East Germany. That's what the Stasi did, you know. I remember going to East Germany a few years ago when it was still East Germany and the streets were deserted and people were very suspicious and people looked over their shoulder all the time and people double-checked and quadruple-checked anybody who was watching them. And if they thought someone was suspicious who was watching them, they went indoors or they hid in an alleyway or they went in the opposite direction. They did everything they can to avoid being snitched on by the spies of the East German Communist Police, the Stasi, some of the most horrendous police forces in the communist world, the Stasi of East Germany. We don't want that in America, and we don't need that in America, and we shouldn't have that in America. Now, back to the 6-foot rule. I think, it's a good rule and all that kind of stuff. Let the people decide. I've been out to the stores that are allowed to be open, and I think all stores should be allowed to be open. Now, whether they close themselves is another matter. Whether they want to institute certain kind of rules and procedures within their privately owned establishments is another matter. But to force them to close because of a government edict or a state government edict, this isn't a federal edict. This isn't the federal government closing down the society. It's the state governments, and I note. Now, this is everything Trump, but I know that the Democrat governors are the most draconian and the most oppressive and the most prone to arresting people, and they're the least likely to cooperate, and they're most likely the least likely to open anytime soon. They would rather stay closed. I don't understand why the Democrat governors want to do that, other than they want to hurt Donald John Trump, our beloved president. They want to hurt his singular achievement, which was a booming economy, the envy of the world, and now in a greatly oppressed state. And the only way they could do that is I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying that the political enemies of Donald Trump produced the COVID-19 virus, or they introduced the virus, or anything like that. But once they had opportunity to politicize it, once they had opportunity to use it to their advantage, or so they thought, once they had opportunity to not only hurt or bruise, but to destroy the American economy under Donald Trump, which has done amazingly well. And who cares? They say to themselves, who cares if American citizens lose a third to a half of their IRA? When we get in power, we'll give it back to them. That's kind of baloney. It doesn't happen that way. Remember Barack Obama saying there is no magic wand? Well, Donald Trump is not a magic wand. He's a hard-working, economically savvy businessman who knows how to make things happen and make things run. I believe he's going to be able to do it. He's going to be able to make America great again. However, I do feel that we have to do something with this 6-foot rule. We have to just, personally, I have introduced this in other podcasts, and to say that maybe we just need to introduce the mask. Say to people, wear the mask when you're in public, in restaurants, well, not restaurants, you can't eat, but in places where Lowe's or any kind of retail establishment, wear the mask, at least for the foreseeable future, and then don't worry so much about the social distancing. Because, what's happened is you can't function. People are suspicious of each other. There's no more than 2 people in an aisle at a time. Some states have instituted a rule where if the family wants to go shopping, the members of the family have to wait outside, and one member of the family can go inside the establishment and get the stuff. Now, that was to prevent overcrowding. And I don't know if it was successful or not, but to me it sounds to be foolish to have a person who maybe has to lift things or reach things or get things be disenfranchised of the ability to have a fellow family member with them when they go grocery shopping or they go any other kind of shopping for that matter. But anyway, that some states have instituted that rule as well under the threat of police arrest and the rest, all this good stuff. My goodness. Our civil rights are really being smacked down here. Now, I still believe in America, and I still believe in Donald Trump, and I still believe that we can do this, and we are doing it. I mean, I see road construction is ongoing. I see bridge construction ongoing. I see house construction ongoing. So the construction trades seem to work. We have the service industries, the sanitation industry, that's the garbage men and like more, the fire people, and we have the hospitals, however, under great stress because people are being encouraged who have elective situations or have situations like cancer and the like more to stay away as much as possible from the hospitals, which is resulting in hospitals losing tremendous amounts of revenue from their empty beds and whole entire sections of a hospital. Listen, just have one ward or two wards or one section of a hospital or even one building of a multi-building hospital devoted to COVID-19, if that's the issue, and open the other four buildings. I know in New Jersey, Hackensack Medical Center has 4 or 5 different 6 buildings, for goodness sakes, and each floor is separate from the other floor, so we can quarantine. We know how to do that. We know how to use sterile environments. We can keep one entire building just for COVID-19 patients, but open up the rest of the hospital for the elective surgeries and the examinations and the regular visits of the regular people who need to have their regular medical care taken care of in the hospital by the doctor. We have to open that up, and we have to just say it. It's going to be opened up. Do it. I think that that whole area of tourism is an elected choice. We choose to take a vacation. We choose where we're going to go. We choose how we're going to spend our day. We choose how we're going to spend our money. We choose how we're going to conduct ourselves on our vacations. And all that choice has been removed out of a fear for the common good. Now, I hear many commentators on television talk about the common good, and they all say, well, no one should die, no one should die, no one should die. Well, of course no one should die, but, people do die. And I'm not saying that we want to be cavalier or callous or silly about it, but people do die, and they die of all kinds of things, and they die every day. And we cannot stop death. Death happens. People die. And maybe the closing down of an entire world, entire economies, of casting people into poverty, to worker households without any income. And we know that the American savings rate is very, very low. People don't have huge savings accounts to use for this. They don't have a year's salary. In a 2-person household, most American families don't have a year's salary in the bank in order to tide them over. It's just not going to happen. And so we need to get these people who want to go back to work and give them permission to go back to work. And that also means encouraging the employers, the restaurants, the retail establishments, the malls, everything. We have to reopen everything and let this take its course, because I know everybody's afraid to open up too soon, too early. It will happen again. But the flu is going to come back again. This is going to come. We all know that. And so we just have to stiffen up our spines a little bit and steel ourselves with the rigidity of purpose and a focus to say we have to open up America, and we have to let people make their choices, and we have to say that the community is not responsible for the death of its individual members. If individual members right now act stupidly and get drunk driving a car and crash it, we don't blame that on the car manufacturers. We don't blame that on the alcohol producers. We don't blame that on the community. We don't blame that on the highway people. We blame it on the person who got drunk and crashed their car. If a person acts silly and contracts this coronavirus, we have the apparatus now. We have the personal protection equipment. We have the hospitals. We know what it is. We can identify it. We have the testing. We can get to people right away with hydroxychloroquine and all of that, and the other medications that work, oxygen therapy and the like, and in severe cases, ventilators, which have been overrated. We know that, and they produce other lung storms that kill the person, and it isn't the coronavirus, it's the ventilator and the use of the ventilator that kills the person. We're finding that out as well. So let's get back to normal. Let's encourage our president and vice president and the people to get back to normal. A suggestion I have, as I close, I think that Congress should get back in session and get back in session in a real way. I think the Supreme Court should go back to the Supreme Court building and hold the court cases in the Supreme Court. I think our